Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk here at a normal time. Everything was a little bit different today. We had a show earlier with Kenny Albert that appeared only on YouTube. So if you're a subscriber, this is when you have the opportunity to get shows that are exclusively set up for YouTube. Kenny Albert, the iconic broadcaster, was on that show. After that, we had Inside the Pigeon. There was no way we were doing a show on the election day. And of course, this one here, on our 86 Baseball Talk, we keep it going ahead and keep it very real. So with that said, okay, we'll go ahead and get this bad boy started. So, all right, I want to introduce the crew. We got Eric Katz. Welcome back, Eric.
Thank you, Scott. It's good to be here.
All right, and we'll also Trent Clark.
What's up, everybody?
And last but not least, George Icorn.
All right. Good to see you all tonight. Thanks.
Busy agenda. Talking World Series, talking about Gerrit Cole, and then our final topic of the night will reflect on the retirement of Bob Costas. Let's get to it. Gerrit Cole staying with the Yankees on a 4-year, $144 million deal. We'll talk about Mr. Yankee himself, Eric Katz. Some thoughts about Gerrit Cole staying in the Bronx.
I think it's a good move. Personally, it's like the same contract, so I'm wondering why he decided to opt out when he decided to go back to it. Really, because what he could have done was he could have gone for the extra year, and I think it gone for the extra year and the additional money. But I think Gerrit Cole has said in the past that he wanted to kind of finish his career in the Bronx. I mean, this year was obviously kind of an up and down year for him, where he spent a majority of the first half of the year on the injured list due to the elbow injury, which thank God it didn't become something worse than what everybody had feared. I think, in the postseason, he was lights out. I think that, this year he was kind of, playing catch up all year. So that can affect the guy's performance. But other than that, though, it's, you need in today's game, you need a numero uno at the top of your rotation. And Cole has been just that for the Yankees.
Okay. Turn over to George.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. Obviously, you don't want to go into the season with that big a hole and losing somebody of that kind of caliber. Not to say he was going to walk away, but, like you mentioned, Eric, I mean, he was out in mid-March. He didn't come back till June, so he lost a good chunk of the season. Obviously, it really didn't hurt the Yankees that much because the Yankees won the division going away. The only other part of it was that his ERA was a little bit higher than normal, I believe, and in the high threes. But I've been a fan of his for quite a number of years. I think he's a good, solid pitcher. I just like any team. You got to surround him with other good, solid pitchers, and every team, as we discover in baseball, everybody's looking for pitching, and we know that, and it's been the case for so many years. But the Yankees, again, they got a good guy in there, and good for them to work this out and make sure he comes back for the next season.
Okay, Trent.
Yeah, I'm not even understood. I don't understand why the opt-out, right? Like, he had the 4-year left on the 144. I saw the additional money. It doesn't sound like he took that in the end, the extended contract, right? That was the opt-out was to force the Yankees' hand for an additional whatever addition. I think it was like 33 or something for another year. But there's probably something they slid in that contract. If they had to renew it and put it in there was something he wanted in there. I don't know if it was use of the jet. I don't know what it was, but Gerrit got something probably in there that he needed. And man, I mean, it's hard. Like, the money's crazy. I'd like to say he's earned it, but at $14,000-$15,000 a pitch, man, I don't know, man. And obviously, if he's out a little bit, that number goes crazy because that just goes exponential from there. How many pitches he threw? So he probably threw pitches at like maybe 26,000 per pitch this year.
Yeah, but remember one thing, Trent, as we wrap up this topic, you're talking New York money where they tax you to death anyway. So, you need a bit more money to offset the fact. We're lucky in Florida. We have no state income tax. And since there's no team in Tennessee, that doesn't particularly apply. But it does apply in Texas. But, to me, as far as I'm concerned, Gerrit Cole certainly is a big part of what they're doing. Pitching nowadays is a big premium. I'll be curious to see what the Yankees, as well as a lot of other clubs, are going to do to try to find a frontline pitcher. So let's go to the chat room. All right, Jay, go Lions, go Orioles, go Blazers, go Go
Beavers.
Beavers.
Okay.
Threw a little Oregon State in
You
there.
know, George, I said anything but your forward to Scott Book was quite good. Well done, sir. All right. There you go,
Thank
George.
you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so as far as Gerrit Cole, we all know he's a frontline pitcher. Again, had some much valuable experience in the World Series for sure. I thought we'd probably see a little bit more out of him in Game 5. And we did for the first few innings, but we won't talk about what happened later because we'll address that later in the show. All right. With that said, let's talk about what the World Series drew, should we? 30 million viewers in North America and Asia. It was Japan's most watched World Series ever with 12.1 million viewers. Mind you, okay, this is a 5-gamer. All right, Eric. Can you imagine what the viewership would have been if we had 7 games? Go ahead, Eric.
It'd probably be, if it was 7 games, it'd probably be the most viewed World Series in the history of the game, bar none. Right. I think part of it with Japan too is like typical. What it used to be with in Japan is, you know, you would have a countryman or two, you know, on an MLB roster. It used to really only be, you know, you'd grab one guy and they would go to that specific team. Sometimes that team would be competitive, say like the Yankees. Other times, you know, he goes to a non-competitive team, or he just, you know, what we've seen with some of these players from Japan is they just don't pan out. Obviously, we have analytics now, which kind of give us a better idea on how that's going to go instead of rolling the dice and praying that it works, instead of just going by what they did in Japan. I think that you know, there's multiple countrymen in LA, and you know that has some audience appeal to it. I mean, Ohtani arguably is the greatest Japanese baseball player of all time. I think when it's all said and done, he will be when he eventually gets elected into the Hall of Fame. But you know, there was just a lot more appeal to it just because particularly the Yankees, they got fans everywhere. They got fans all over the map. So, you know, it gives like a lot more view. And also the teams are both well known. They've been around in baseball. They've been, you know, teams in this league forever. And, you know, there was just a lot more appeal to it. 2 of the most well-known teams in Major League Baseball facing off with each other. It was also the first time in a very long time that we've had that. They haven't been so, I don't want to say generic. I mean, last year was kind of generic a little bit. You could probably argue 2002 when the Angels were against the Giants, that was a little bit generic. And then same when Kansas City kind of took on San Francisco again, that was kind of a little generic. But I think now we actually have 2, like, it was truly a heavyweight fight. You know, those ones you could probably argue were either lightweight or welterweight.
Well, Shohei Ohtani, let's not get ourselves a drawing card wherever you go. So there's no question that he had a stranglehold on the market. Let's go back to some of the comments before I turn over to you guys. And I'm just happy the Yankees lost. Well, not that you'd like to hear, Eric, but that's what Jay thinks. It made me smile, Yankee tears of joy. Okay, the Japanese used to only export old players. That changed, obviously, when they come in their prime or even a bit before. That's true. Was Ichiro Suzuki the first Japanese player to come in his prime? You know what? I'm not sure, but I think he was. I think he had, over 2,000 hits in his career, and he probably has over 3,000 collectively.
Overall, yeah.
Yeah, and then you had San Francisco, some pretty amazing teams, though.
Hey, Jay. Hey, Jay, all I got to say is you said you rooted for the Orioles. The last time the Orioles were playing in the World Series, you know, you have to go back to the time where Michael Jackson was in his prime singing.
Okay, well, that's Eric's rebuttal there. So, all right, George, let's talk about those numbers.
Yeah, even though it was a 5-game series, I mean, they did extremely well on the numbers. You know, I think it was the most watched World Series since 2017. You know,
Right.
that's 7 years ago. And I mean, let's face it, we knew all this going in. You know, the marquee players were going to be in this series.
Yeah.
The names that the fans love, the names that not only love, but some of them a love-hate relationship, let's say, depending if you're a Yankee fan or a Dodger fan or just an overall baseball fan. But yeah, you couldn't have had more marquee names than this one. And like you guys said, I mean, sure, if it would have gone 6 or 7, they would have that viewership would have even been higher. But you know, the MLB had to be happy. Fox obviously was happy. The media rights holders from, television, radio, everywhere were very happy. It was a classic matchup, and they tried their best to obviously sell it to more people in America and more people around the world. And like you said, Scott, I mean, the ratings in North America were very good, and then around in Asia as well. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, if anything, it does show that baseball does have some room to grow even more. And, the numbers are gone from the back in the early 60s and the 70s when baseball was still king, but there's still room to come back. The game is still a great game. And those of us obviously on this show love it.
It's
And
still
so many
relevant.
other people. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's the prime attraction,
Mhm.
So let's go to the chat room. Candy Ebling, why don't you read your comment? I think it's impressive. A little FYI. You can come on here and read it.
But in the 1960s, Mansouri Mukani of the Giants opened new doors with his appearance against the New York Mets. A crowd of 40,524 gave Murakami a standing ovation as he walked to the Shea Stadium Pitcher's Mound on September 1st, 1964, becoming the first Japanese player to appear in a big league game.
So for all you Japanese historians, there you go. All right, Trent.
Well, I mean, first of all, good series. I'm surprised all of you aren't wearing Dodger blue. I'll be honest. Like, I thought we had a wager, and everyone's letting me down.
Scott kind of
Yeah. Thanks, Motor City. Love it. And so then I think that ratings great. Obviously, when it's these two big teams, they want to see it go as long as they can. I was surprised it didn't go 6, obviously, with a 5-0 lead late in the game. I mean, that's pretty shocking. I think from a Yankees hater group, I mean, this is probably everybody's dream. Up big in the game 5 and going to push it back to LA, and then the wheels came off. I think for all the Yankee haters, they were probably just thrilled to see some real boneheaded Yankee mistakes that just aren't typical, right? It's just not standard, the little fundamental standard baseball, and it got away from them, and just one after another. And listen, this is not new, man. This is not new. Like when we talk about like the old Cubs and the whole thing with Bartman, and the wind comes back in Chicago, everybody knows that wind blows back to the field. And listen, 5 people's hands went up. Just one guy actually hit the ball, right? And everybody's gunning for that. The next play is a double play ball to the shortstop, and he booed it back. So like,
Alex Gonzalez,
like everybody forgets this stuff, man. Like fundamental baseball, man. It's like when the witchcraft and the voodoo hits, man. You can't stop it from rolling.
Well, reality of this, okay? Everybody knew that when you look at it, okay, we're talking about different regions represented: North America, Asia, and Japan. That's a lot, okay? That's why the numbers are what they are. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen it go 7. I think the Yankees win in 7. That's why I'm wearing Dodger blue, because I was wrong. Do I mind owning it? No, I don't even care. I told you I would. That I would wear a form of blue if the Dodgers won and the Yankees lost. I am wearing it. Hello, people.
I see you, George.
I wrote about it, absolutely hammering the team. So I deserve a little credit on that front. That's I went and deep dived on that one. So I think that should count for Dodger blue, is the way I absolutely eviscerated the Yankees in what I wrote.
Well, say what you want. I'm wearing the cotton picking blue. I drank the Yankee Kool-Aid, and all of a sudden I have blue on. It's okay. The Dodgers are a great franchise. At least the one thing nobody will ever say. And we've talked about it before. Now everybody can leave 20 alone with the go-with thing, and they won a full series. So what?
Yeah.
But then let's face reality. They paid a lot. They bought this pennant, and rightfully so, they earned it. So I have no problem. But it was a big hit with even these numbers. Again, we'll always wonder what it would have been like if they had 2 more games, but there wasn't. It's always a few what-ifs when it's all said and done. All right, we'll talk about the LA Dodgers at the trade deadline, okay, because it's certainly why you make these particular moves. But they added Jack Flaherty, Kevin Kiermaier, Tommy Edman, Michael Kopech. So with that said,
Flaherty didn't do anything. Flaherty was like awful during the postseason.
Yeah, but you needed him down the stretch to get you there, Eric.
It was, okay, Edmund actually they did that was a smart one because we'd seen what Tommy Edmund could do when he's healthy, but he had to obviously he was hurt at the time, so they kind of had to wait on him. Kopech, I liked him in Chicago. I mean, he's always had a big arm. It's just Chicago could never figure out how to get him to put it all together, and obviously LA with Mark Pryor, who's another one of those big what if guys. He knows how to put these guys together, and I knew once they got Kopech would turn to gold. I mean, that was a solid pickup, and I think that he has an opportunity to potentially take the Dodgers closing job long term.
Okay. By the way, hey, Jay, we're going to get to your question in a few minutes. Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, some teams make great moves, and I think the Dodgers picked up some strength. It's nice to see a strong team get stronger and not just sit back and say, hey, we got what we need. You see some gaps, and so taking that up, I think, is really smart. And so, man, sure, they look like they made all the right moves now, man. Hindsight's 2020, but they look like they made all the right moves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Eric, as I alluded to before, Eric, okay, you can say that Jack Flaherty didn't live up to expectations in the postseason, but he gave him a quality arm, and he got them to the postseason, did what he could. I mean, one game, as I understood, he was sick, but he gave you everything he had. And that deal will ultimately, let me finish, work out well for the Tigers and the Dodgers. Tigers got a couple prospects, Trey Sweeney was one of them. If Flaherty ended up going ahead and winning a World Series, I believe he'll be a free agent. Anyways, he was a deadline pickup, or as they call it, a rental. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Well, let me tell you, though, his ERA, I mean, he was rock solid with the Tigers. I think he had a 2-something ERA, and his ERA inflated by, I think, over a point to 3.58. So really, it wasn't as that. And I knew that, Flaherty had struggled in the postseason. I remember him during the Cardinals. He'd be great. He'd be good. And then he'd have a game or two in the postseason. Next thing you know, the guy completely implodes. And that's exactly what happened to him in the postseason. So I got to kind of vindicate Brian Cashman for avoiding that move.
You vindicate him all you want. The bottom line is he's got one thing you don't have, and that's a championship ring. So
I got
you can just find all you want, my little.
You got 26 more to get before you can get up to that level.
Say what you want, but he's got one, and all I can say is he has one more championship than Dan Marino has, and I'll leave it at that.
That is true. About Dan Marino, yeah, absolutely. About Dan Marino.
All right, I got the last word. We're going to go to one more topic before we go to.
No, you didn't let me speak on this yet. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll let you speak, sir.
6-2 regular season. Scott, you're spot on. Eric, you're being too critical. He was 6-2 for the Dodgers. He helped them get there. Okay, so he's 1-2 in the postseason. Hey, Verlander, he sucked at many years in the postseason or in the World Series.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, some of the best pitchers don't always win in the World Series. All I'm saying is, like Scott said, it looks like a trade that'll help both teams. Now, if the Tigers are smart, they're gonna wage a good battle to try to re-sign him and bring him back because Detroit needs starting pitcher. But I agree. He did have a good influence on that Dodger team and in enhancing their chances to win it all.
George,
I understand his ERA was higher. Okay, I get that than in Detroit, but he's playing in a tough environment.
Wins don't mean anything to starting pitchers anymore.
Well, yeah, you know what? Well, you know what? Hold on. I will endorse George's idea of bringing Justin Verlander back to the Tigers, and I'll only do it for one reason: the manager's AJ Hinch. So we'll take it there. Sorry, go ahead, Trent. What are your thoughts about the Dodgers deadline acquisitions?
Yeah. Like I said, I think they made the right moves. I think it was all good. I think they look pretty brilliant now. And there's a bunch of things we look at in starting pitching, but from Flaherty's standpoint, gave him some quality innings and a lot of innings. And while 1-2 is not really astounding in the playoffs, 6-2 is pretty good leading up to it. And then eating innings, keeping him out of the bullpen too early. So I think that was good. I think he did his job.
All right, one more topic before we go to a station break. Going out on top, Daniel Hudson's retiring from MLB. Some thoughts, Eric?
I mean, He was a decent reliever. I mean, I think he was a Dodgers closer at one point. He kind of leaves with a World Series ring, so can't fault the guy for that. So I mean, decent career, decent reliever. So gets a ring. What more could you want in this world?
I'm all for players that go out on top. The first one I ever saw in person going on top was a guy by the name of John Elway. Ever heard of him? He was pretty good. Okay, George.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that name before. Elway, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, exactly what was, every player is going to have times when he has to take a look at it. And Trent, this, you've worked with Major League Baseball for so many years, and I respect your opinion, Trent. But Daniel Hudson, I mean, if it's time for him to move on, I certainly get it. I mean, and the fact that he has a ring, he has a championship in his back pocket, and he can always talk about that with his kids and grandkids and all his admiring fans and family, etc. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, and when they have to face this reality, so to speak, or decision making, it's tough on players, whether you're a pitcher, batter, whatever you are, a coach even. It's tough on them. And Hudson, he had a good career, and like you said, Eric, I mean, he's going out on top. He's got his ring, and I'm happy for him.
Okay, Trent, you got the last word.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of you guys. I think going out on top is right. I think it's a hard decision, especially when things are going well. How long you can play, how long you feel like you can keep going, how long you want to keep grinding. When your family changes and dynamics change, you don't know if you necessarily want to just stay in it, right? And especially if you made good money and had a good career. So personal life calls, and I think for the most part, though, people should probably stay in as long as they can. And I think Elway did a really good job of keeping himself healthy. By the way, Catsy, another Yankee, John Elway, by the way, drafted by the Yankees.
That is true.
And
that is true.
farmhand, pretty good ball player out of Stanford. And so, yeah, I think in the end of the day, personal decision, you got to respect it, and hopefully made the right one. The tough thing you don't want to see is a guy going, oh, man, it was an error. Now I want to come back at 39 or 41. And, man, that's not the time to be going out trying to get a job.
All right, so let me ask you a question, Trent. Okay, you bring up Elway as a minor leaguer. Okay, do you know where the Yankees minor leaguers used to hold spring training when they were playing in Fort Lauderdale?
I do not. No.
Fort Lauderdale.
There you go. Where? Anybody want to take any guesses?
Yeah, I do. I know the answer. It used to be in Fort Lauderdale. It's Tampa now, but I used to do it at Fort Lauderdale Stadium.
Wrong. Hollywood, Florida.
Oh.
I used to live in Hollywood, Florida,
right.
And I remember when the Yankees they actually had a couple complexes there, but one of them was right behind one of the apartments I lived on. I knew none of you guys were going to get that one, but that's okay. I stumped you on a FYI, but I'm not stumping Candy on a station break. Go ahead, Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by George Eichhorn. Both of them are on the show tonight. Awesome, gentlemen. This book talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the media industry and how it has changed. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple and Google Books. Watch for audio book later this year. You can also find a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find a link to our merchandise store. And you can find a plethora of writings. Lots. Go check it out. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us with all your friends. Monday nights, we talk baseball. We also talked football tonight because tomorrow night we're asking you to do your civic duty and go out and vote. Wednesday nights, Sports Exchange. You never know what we're going to be talking about. And the same with Fire Up on Thursday nights. On Fire Up Florida, we talk hockey. That's Thursday nights. And on Wednesday nights, we also have the Motor City Madmouth Show on nofilter.net. Our Twitter handle is, or X, is at Tribune South. If you want to email us because you want to be a guest on the show or have some show ideas, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, if you would love to sponsor this show or any of our other shows or advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. Back to the program.
Thank you, Candy. Of course, today's an interesting day for us here, South Florida Tribune. We had a triple header today. We began with Kenny Albert, who appeared solely on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. For those of you that haven't subscribed, good opportunity, because there are situations where we're going to be able to run the show on that only. So that's an advantage for you to subscribe. Of course, another thing is we had the football show. There's no way I was competing with the election, and the guys are happy because they got to do it before Monday Night Football. And this show obviously is in its regularly scheduled time. So everything worked out well. Great day here for us. And of course, the programming later in the week will even get interesting tomorrow night. We're just going to let the election take over for us. So, all right, 3 more topics to talk about. Alex Rodriguez says, this is one of the greatest meltdowns I've ever seen in 40 years, reflecting on the Yankees blowing a 5-0 lead. Let's go back to the comment, though, before you guys talk about it, that Jay put up there, and that's this. Okay, let's see what we have. All right. I'll find it sooner or later. But, Eric, why don't you go ahead and talk about it, and I'll locate it. Oh, there you go. Did the Dodgers clutch or the Yankees choke? You know, we'll add that on to the topic, and we'll turn it over to Eric. Thanks, Candy.
I mean, probably in recent. I'd probably say the Cardinals and Rangers might actually have the in the World Series when David Freese had his game. I'd probably say that that was probably has a little more significance because the Rangers had that World Series won twice, but David Freese comes up, hits the game tying triple, and then later in extra innings hits the winner, and then eventually the Cardinals, which thanks to his help as well, they eventually win that. So I'd probably say, I'd probably give that one. I'd probably say I give the Cardinals and Rangers series an edge, but probably so far in like the recent decade, I'd probably say he's probably right on that one. But I probably allude meltdowns more or less to if your team has the lead and is that close and blows it, rather than the team is like behind 3-1 at that point where all the other team needs to do is just win a game and they do it. So, I wouldn't go. I don't think it's to the degree that Alex Rodriguez thinks it is. Bad meltdown nonetheless, but I wouldn't say it's like, I wouldn't call it what Alex Rodriguez is calling it.
Okay. George.
Well, I wouldn't go as far either because I'll tell you why. Because the series was already under Dodgers' control.
Right.
It's interesting. I believe we were on the air that night when that 5-0 lead evaporated, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, I think we were.
I thought so. I just couldn't believe it because I didn't have the television near me. But I mean, when I saw misjudge,
Really?
whatever the heck happened to him in center field, it was just atrocious.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, I agree, Eric. I don't think you can label it as the biggest flub up in that. I mean, Bill Buckner, the ground ball, and listen, you want to talk about Cardinals? I mean, go on ancient history here, but 1968, they blew a 3-1 lead over the Tigers in the World Series in 1968. But I mean, there's been so many other ones that have happened. I mean, A-Rod, I don't know, trying to get revenge against his old team or trying to make them angry at him, but that's okay. He's a broadcaster; he's got a right to say what he wants. But that one game was a meltdown, but
right.
The whole series in total was they just weren't in control of it. So I mean, the Dodgers were more in control. I guess you could make a case for meltdown, but there have been worse, though. There have been worse, but Yankee fans have suffered enough. They don't need A-Rod to rub it in any further, but he did.
What do you think, Trent?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen some big ones, right? I mean, I think there's been other series before there were more memorable than that, maybe. I mean, it was a bad inning. It's a lot of game left. By the way, it was the 5th. There's a lot of chance. We had a pretty big comeback in 0-2 over the Giants. Big Spezio home run late in the game. That was like the 7th. It was getting pretty late. But that was also a game 6. You still got to win a game 7. I mean, the Mets, the same thing with Billy Buckner. That was a game 6. You still got to come back and win game 7. So, in a closing game like that, man, I mean, I turned it off, man. I mean, I was done with that. I had other things going on, and I thought, yeah, it's gonna be great. We're gonna get a game 6. So I had written off like it was over, man. The news the next day surprised the snot out of me.
George, it's amazing how you talk about Bill Buckner. I compared that play at first to the Bill Buckner play. I'm kind of glad you really brought it up. But I think that the Yankees choked. I don't go that far. Let's face the reality that if they choked, it was in game 1 when Aaron Boone made that decision to make the pitching change, which enabled the Dodgers to steal a win and take a 1-0 lead. All they needed was 1 out. Keep in mind, the 5th inning, you had no unearned runs in that game either. Eric, who was the first baseman in game 5 for the Yankees?
Anthony Rizzo.
Rizzo.
Yeah, okay. And by the way, what have they done? They didn't renew his option either. So
there was a lot more. Well, it really had nothing to do with that. If you look at the body of work Rizzo put in all year, the body of work this year, his injuries and his age,
regardless of that, he made the play or didn't make the play with a routine 3-1, which could have ended the inning, and we don't have a 5-run situation like we did. Talk about Anthony Rizzo.
Wasn't routine, man. Shift was on. The shift was on. He's 30 feet off the base. He's got to go. The pitcher's got to go. No, and this is the funny thing about this game, man. Like, no one gives the responsible party the responsibility, right? Because Gerrit Cole's got to cover. It's his job. Like, if anyone's at fault in that play, it's Gerrit Cole. Run it out. Go do your job. If you don't need him, he'll call you off. But you go until the first baseman. Everybody knows it. Everyone who's throwing a ball past the mound, past 14 years old, knows when that ball goes to the right side, you're going until someone calls you off or you see it done. He didn't finish the play. And this is one of these things that, like, we've seen these big plays in series, and it's crazy because I got a great trivia question. Who's the leading hitter for the who's got more hits for the Boston Red Sox? Who's Mr. 400?
Ted Williams.
Right. And Billy Buckner is then what? No one remembers that guy, right? Billy Buckner's just an error. Who has more hits? Buckner or Ted Williams?
Buckner.
Yeah.
I went on a rant. I went on a rant a while ago about Bill Buckner outside of that play.
Yeah, but he's legendary. He's totally in legend over one play, and the guy was a good player. I mean, I'm not saying he's better than Ted Williams. I'm just telling you, he collected more hits, man. He's a consistent hitting machine. And I know Ted Williams left for the war. I know that. So there's other factors to consider for sure. But at the end of the day, Ted Williams is known as the best Boston Red Sox maybe of all time. And here's Bill Buckner, who's a pretty good Red Sox player, and he's memorialized for one mistake. It's a joke.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
And that's a shame. But it's funny how you mentioned Buckner, though. I'll never forget in my senior year in high school how our government teacher was a sports fan. He asked the question, who won the batting title the previous year? And I mentioned Bill Buckner, and nobody even knew the answer, and I did. So that's something I remember about. And you know what, though? With all due respect, you're really right. Okay. I think Bill Buckner will go down as one of the most underappreciated players in baseball history.
Yep.
I really
do. I believe that too.
It's a shame that he obviously is memorialized right for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
he had the leg thing going on. They had an opportunity to put in a pretty good a utility guy in Tim Stapleton, and didn't, because John McNamara wanted to win with his own guys.
Yep. That's Johnny Mac's loyalty, man.
Although if let's just say Buckner makes the play, okay? Let's just say it comes to him and grounds it off. We still got extra innings to play. The game was tied. The wild pitch happened. Runner came around to score. The game is tied.
Yeah, but you know what? Vince Scully's not calling those plays. He's only calling Bill Buckner. Sick, man. Really?
Well,
seriously?
It was a game-winning hit, so of course he's going to call. Of course he's going to call it
game-winning error.
Just watch Once Upon a Time in Queens. It'll tell you all about what was going on there.
All right, well, just throwing it out there, Eric. It is what it is. Vince Scully wouldn't be calling what you talked about if, okay? All he's talking about the error.
Should Judge be ruled out then? Worst play of a center fielder in the World Series in a lot of years. It was a can of corn, easy ball to catch. And let's just memorialize Judge as the guy who dropped the ball in the World Series, not the guy who hit 62 home runs. I mean, they've forgiven that guy pretty quick. And by the way, they should. Like, he's a great athlete. Yeah. Like, he's done all sorts of good. But that's the problem. I've never understood the lack of forgiveness for Billy Buckner. I don't understand.
Yeah, you know what?
And he was a good player, too.
Yeah, I never have either. I never have either. I never have either. But the reality of the situation is this, okay? No matter what anybody says, okay, had that play have been made, you don't have a 500 runs. We can't
Absolutely, it would have been
any other way. We could sit here and debate it all day long. It doesn't make a lick of difference. Right. If that 3-1 play is made, it's still 5-0 Yankees. And you know what? I'll go back to what you guys are saying. All right, so they would have made it to Game 6. The Dodgers would have finished them off in L.A., and Major League Baseball would have made more money anyway. So what's the difference? Speaking of the Dodgers, okay, no surprise, Freddie Freeman won the World Series MVP, homering in 6 straight games. So you know what, Eric? We'll start off again with you. No surprise to you or obvious?
I thought Tommy Edman had an argument there. I mean, Tommy Edman certainly contributed his hay to the pot. But obviously Freddie Freeman had himself one hell of a series. The Yankees couldn't figure him out, and obviously Freddie Freeman I think Freddie Freeman, when it's all said and done, will be in the Hall of Fame. I think he was very equally deserving of it. I thought Edman certainly had an argument there, given what he had done all series. But obviously Freddie Freeman had a big series. I mean, when you home run like 5 or 6 straight games, you're gonna get it. I mean, that's one hell of a streak, though.
George.
Yeah, I mean, Edman had 20 hits, it says, and 12 runs scored. Played 16 games in the postseason. Freeman was 13 games, 6 runs, 13 hits, but the big one was the 4 home runs and the 13 RBIs. I get what you're saying, Eric, but I don't think there was any chance they were going to deny Freeman that award, the media. And, it was an excellent series, and it was a very emotional one for him, too, as he went over to see his dad in the box seats and gave his dad a hug and kiss. And then, of course, he was with the Atlanta Braves. He's already got one with Atlanta, a World Series championship. So now he's one of those that has the distinction of being with 2 teams and 2 World Series champions. But I do agree with you. I mean, Edman, he had a great series, too. There are a lot of great players. Whenever you win a series, you're going to have a lot of great players. But Freeman, I mean, you just can't top that. Home run after home run, a game after game, just an incredible series. I'm happy for him.
Let's put Jay's comment. Yes, Judge needs to be traded. You know what, Jay? I'll say don't hold your breath. They're not trading him, but
no.
Just want to include
that contract. Are you kidding me? Even if they wanted to,
that's okay. It's all right to put it up there. So, all right, Eric. I mean, Jay. I got Jay. Trent. Okay.
Yeah.
Freddie Freeman.
Yeah. I mean, right guy, man. I mean, like, the other thing about Freeman is Freeman was not hot coming into the series. Pretty icy cold, by the way. Great to see a pro like him just turn it up. Made a couple adjustments. Obviously, those days off must have done him very well. I think he hadn't had a home run in 27 games or something. Yeah, there was a big stat prior to that he hadn't had. I think the other side, and it's a little bit of legacy too, because his last World Series, he hit a home run in the last 3 games of the last series he was in. So when he hit a home run in the first 3 games, I mean, that's crazy. A home run in 6 straight World Series games. Yeah. I mean, I think that little record is going to stay around for a while, other than someone who just goes off in a series for all 7 and hits one every game. But that's pretty special. I think it's couldn't go to a better guy. Freddie seems like a real sharp dude, and he's a guy who cares, obviously. And the Atlanta fans were, decimated when, he left, and he took out the paper or did the billboard thing and thanked the Braves fans. I mean, like, he just seems like a class act all the way.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it's a good point Cassie makes about, Edmund. Like, what a nice series. Like, the guy just going out consistently doing his job, tough at bats, every at bat. Like, he was tenacious in there, and obviously his first shot at a World Series. So I think that's right. I think this is his first. Yeah. And man, he just seemed like he was ready. And I love to see athletes that have prepared themselves for that moment and then get that moment and shine. I mean, that's a little bit of Scott Spezio story, right? Always prepping, always a utility guy, always ready for the big moment. He's prepared for what's about to happen, mentally, physically, emotionally, morally, ready to get in there and do his job. And when you see players like that are true pros, I think it's going to give him, by the way, another shot, because when you see a guy like that who plays so tenacious, I think a lot of teams will look at that guy as a trade deadline, even as he gets into his veteran status, because they're like going, "Guy, he's a really good playoff player," and there's a mark for that too.
All right, the only thing I'll say to end the topic out is this: Freeman was the obvious choice to win the MVP. I already said it, 6 home runs. But let's flip the script for a second. Had the Yankees have won this series, the guy I would have chosen would have been Giancarlo Stanton, who stepped up his game in the postseason.
Yeah.
And another guy that I'm happy for that won a World Series ring, and I know him all too well, is Miguel Rojas, who's in Miami, who I think will be a future manager in Major League Baseball if you're looking at Latin players. So watch out for the name Miguel Rojas. The Dodgers are bringing it back for another year. Last thing we're going to talk about tonight is the retirement of Bob Costas. Okay, Bob Costas leaves his mark. No longer going to be doing play-by-play for MLB Network, but they said they'll still keep him around doing other different things. What are your thoughts about Bob Costas, Eric?
Well, Bob Costas has been on TV since ever. I mean, he's done baseball for years, and baseball he has a special place in his heart for. I think it was time. He had a real rough one against in the Yankees and Royals series.
Right.
You just knew that Matt. I know I saw an interview with him a while ago saying, I might not be able to hit the fastball, but I could still crush a meatball into the bleachers, where there's still a place for him. But this one showed that, man, it is time. I mean, he's been at it for ever. I'm sure some of us sitting here remember when he began. Obviously he did every baseball game you could ever want to do, World Series, All-Star games, regular season, the like. But it was time. You could just tell that he was just, this wasn't the Bob Costas we were accustomed to. But other than that, though, I mean, a solid, fantastic career. Definitely will have a spot in Cooperstown for his contributions to baseball and the like. And he's still, aside from the other things he'll do, he's still on MLB Network. He still does a great interview. He's still a terrific interviewer. He does the MLB documentaries. I know he did one with Jim Leland, and he's still a great interviewer. I mean, there's still a place in broadcasting for him, but play-by-play, man, I think it's time for him to. I think he did the right thing by hanging it up, because, man, he had a rough one out there.
Okay, that's fine, but at least he got to do the Kansas City Royals and New York Yankees, which was an old school matchup back in the 70s. Okay, George.
Yeah, Bob has had a tremendous career, no question about it. He's one of those guys, along with Joe Buck and Jack Buck, and I think of Vin Scully, we mentioned already, Garagiola. These guys on the national level were just superb. Okay, Al Michaels when he was in his prime. They really loved the game of baseball, and they really, really wanted to share that love with their followers. I mean, Bob was the voice not only of baseball. I mean, he was the voice of NBC Sports, just like Jim McKay for ABC was for a while, and of course, Al Michaels has done it, and now Mike Tirico. I mean, these guys are legends. They're legends, and it was it's sorry to see him slip up a little bit there, Costas, but I've always had a great respect for him. He's such a pro.
Yes.
He's such a professional. His appearance when he's on the set or at a ball game in the broadcast booth. I mean, the guy always looks so great. He's prepared. He's ready to do the broadcast. And we got a situation with Al Michaels in football now, where a lot of people are saying it's time for him to step aside. But getting back to Costas, I admired him. I really did like his, but I liked him even more so, I guess I have to say, as the host and the interviewer, because he's done that so well in his sportscasting career.
Yes.
He's good on play-by-play, but like you guys talked, I mean, he's a great interviewer, and he still will be for MLB Network. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Trent, some thoughts.
Yeah, great contributor to the game, all sports. He's iconic. Just one of those broadcasters. Scully, I mean, you could throw Costas in with him, and certainly our man in Detroit, right, who we love so much, with Ernie Harwell, and there's just those names. I think of college football, Keith Jackson.
Yep.
I mean, there's just some iconic names. I mean, and the longevity that we're talking about with, Monday Night Football, Al Michaels, right? We were just watching, I was 10 years old when, 1980, and Do You Believe in Miracles, the moment that Al Michaels is calling that, you're like, man, that is like 1980.
That's
man.
the
That
greatest
is like
broadcaster of all time.
44 years ago, right? So these iconic voices. I think it is probably wise that with all the media out there, there is probably a moment where we get to a certain level where, it's probably time to leave the play-by-play booth, and the interview stuff is great. I'm sure Al Michaels is probably still a great one-on-one guy, and Costas is known that he's done a ton of great work at Syracuse. And, he was tapped on the shoulder as a young guy to read the Mickey Mantle eulogy in 95, and he wasn't that old then, man. And so everyone saw his level of potential very early, and so really kind of a cool life's run for him. And I think he's probably just, I mean, if there's anybody ever a guy that's lived the dream, I think it's him. Yeah, for never playing the game, right?
All right, so let's have some fun with Jay's recent comments, because he already knows I don't like Howard Cosell, so we know he wasn't never better than Bob Costas, but I'll acknowledge him, okay. And at least from what I heard, okay, Herman Edwards tell Dan Marino, okay, I could care less about either of those two, but Jay, I'll give you your due. Here's the reality, okay. Bob Costas had an excellent career. He's won a 4 Crick Award. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's all you need to know. And there's nothing wrong with a guy that's done broadcasting for a lot of years, resorting to one-on-one interviews. Even though I do a lot of shows where I have panels and crews on them, let me tell you something. I love doing a good one-on-one interview. It's just you and the other person. It really is. That's when you can find out to get to know somebody in depth and all kinds of different things. So you know what? If you're not going to do play-by-play, a one-on-one interview suits me fine. I have no problem. And I should point out to our audience, Lessons from the Microphone Part 2. I'm going to be working on it sometime in early January. Be working on the outline. You can rest assured this panel is going to be in there and mentioned in it as well. So with that said, that does conclude the show, but we have some unfinished business. So with that said, Eric, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can find me on at bellyupsports.com, where I write about all things baseball.
Okay, George, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a book out there too. Scott's got a book. We all got books, and Trent does too. Detroit Sports Broadcasting on the Air. We mentioned one of those great names a little while ago. There it is. Ernie Harwell, of course. He's a big part of this book. And Scott and I have known Ernie, Uncle Ernie, for a long, long time. So great relationships with a lot of sportscasters, both Scott and myself. And we have a lot of great pictures in this book. So you can read me at the South Florida Tribune. I'm under the Motor City Tribune. And then at the end of my column, there's always a link to Amazon for you if you'd like to buy the book and support us here in Detroit. And I also can be found on X, Twitter at SanDG Sports 99, or you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, or else gicorn@yahoo.com as well. Always great being with you all here on 108 Stitches, and of course the Sports Exchange, and wherever else Scott needs me.
Best part about the show, we have 3 authors, myself, George, and now the one I'm going to turn over to, and that's Trent. Go ahead, talk about your book and how they can reach you, Trent.
Yeah, you can reach me at Trent@leadershipity.com. I am host of Winners Find a Way on all the podcast networks. That show goes live every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and our Leadershipity YouTube channel. And you can reach me at Trent@leadershipity.com or find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find, so you can reach me there. But yeah, pick up that book. Excited about November 12th, where the audiobook will be released to the public on for purchase on November 12th. So excited about that one coming out.
Yeah, we're working on our audio book. I found somebody at Toastmasters that's going to be working on it. We'll get more details as time goes on. But that said, I'll turn it over to Candy to take this broadcast home.
The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. The foreword is written by George Eichhorn, and the book, the meat, the guts, was written by Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. Audio book details later this year. It talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the media and how it has changed old school versus new school media. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find Scott's writing, George's writings, and my pictures. Go to our site. There is also a link to our merchandise store. Go get some gifts for Christmas. If you see the red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family, whoever you think would enjoy. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, typically we talk football, but this week we bumped it up. You can find it on our YouTube channel tonight because we preceded this because we're asking everybody to do their civic duty and go out there and vote tomorrow. Wednesday nights, Sports Exchange, we talk all sports. Thursday nights, on Fire Up Florida, we talk hockey, and then on Fire Up, we talk about all the different sports. We also, on Wednesday nights, have the show on nofilter.net, the Motor City Madmouth Show, where we talk pretty much all Michigan-related sports, where it could be the Lions, the Red Wings, the Tigers, Michigan football. You just never know. Tune in to find out what we're talking about there. If you listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest on one of our shows or you have some ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Our Twitter or X handle is @TribuneSouth. Back to you, but don't forget, go vote tomorrow.
All right, I want to end this show on a somber note. And over the weekend, I found out that my brother-in-law, Todd Shepik, lost his sister to an unfortunate accident. I'm not going to divulge the nature of it, but Don was somebody that I got to know pretty well when I was in Wisconsin, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So she passed away over the weekend. So I want to send out my deepest condolences to Todd and his wife, as well as, Don's husband, Rob, and their two children. So rest in peace, Don. Great knowing you, and the world is a better place with you. Things happen. So all I can tell you is everybody live every day as if it were your last, because you never know when the show is over. So once again, Dawn Luce, rest in peace. And one of my favorite stories of her, as we go off the air, is when Candy had an opportunity to go ahead and cover a University of Wisconsin football game. Don Luce and a couple of Marie's sisters got involved and dressed Candy up to go to Camp Randall Stadium. It was just fun to watch. It really was. And Don was definitely one of the people that stood out. So once again, Don, rest in peace. You'll never be forgotten. And condolences to everybody that is surrounded with Don Luce. The world's a better place with her in it, but you know what? Heaven will be a fine place to her as well. So that does conclude this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. On behalf of Eric Cass, George Eichhorn, and Trent M. Clark, my name is Scott Morgan, Ruff Motor City Mad Mouse. Thanking you for joining us on this baseball show, 108 Citrus Baseball Talk, and we'll do it again next week. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful evening. Bye now.